What would you like to talk to us today?
I have talked about intellect and the awareness. Tao is the awareness. Now I will focus on intellect. And verse 48 is really about intellect, but it addressed that through the study. So today I want to show you how the author, Lao Tzu, view this intellect. The word intellect, let me share my screen so we can go through each verse that is being mentioned, that the word is being mentioned. And let me share my screen and you see that word, the character I'm trying to search for. This is a Chinese character, 智, means intellect, intelligence, or intelligent. Depends on which part of the speech it plays. There are 8 such a word has been mentioned in the book. First one in verse 3, it's talking about the intellectuals. Intellectuals, by its definition, its occupation is basically mainly to engaging intellect. And it is those people are less likely practicing Tao, because, as I said, when they engage in their intellect, your conscious mind can only focus one. When you engage in your intellect, when you are thinking, you have no way to pay attention to your awareness. So, Nick, you say it's very hard to practicing Tao. It's actually taking more energy. If that's the case, the method you are using will not achieve what you want. You really should about not doing anything, particularly your mind. I know it's hard. And there are people saying very hard to meditate, very hard to stand still or sitting still, because they feel very hard to stop their mind. So this is really about, you don't need to do anything because you are the awareness. You are the Tao in essence. Like I said, without this Tao, without awareness, there will be no you. You will cease as your individual you. A being starts by adopting the awareness as a host. That's what they mean by Tao creates everything. And you know what is that which hears? You know, I'm hearing me. What is exactly hearing this? It's not your ear, not your ear, because ear only hear the sound. It's not even your brain. Your brain, like an AI, can only, analyze what the sound, what the word is in the sound, but it has no idea about. Maybe it can be trained about what each word means, but the underlying meaning of the sentence can only be understood by your awareness. So your awareness is the really you. Without this, you cease to exist, or you are momentarily in a dream. So here, the verse 3 is talking about by leading intellectuals, they are not to define non-doing, because they also know they are the one wish to engage their mind, try to proposing actions motivated by something. Their action is selective without realizing everything contributes a cause. Everything is interconnected. And when a human selectively doing something, you will neglect things they didn't do. So that that is effectively interfering the flow of the nature. And that's why the author emphasized. Now, this is particularly for the leaders. Individuals, you have intellect, you use it because that's the way you fulfill your role in life. We, each individual, have a different role to play. So we are like a God in the flesh. We are simply an actor in this game of life. We've been given a role to play. How well you play your role, it's up to individual. And author does not believe everyone will be enlightened. And there is no need to be everyone to be enlightened. And if everyone acting at the same way, then the universe probably will stand still. So here is the first verse that uses that character. And again, I encourage you to compare with your favorite translation, because some of the translation, they probably were reluctant to translate that word accurately, because thinking about the intellect is something preventing the practicing Dao is something is counterintuitive. And so let's look at the next one. I don't know how to go find the next. Okay, probably I need to switch this one.
You see that you see the box right next to the box. There is a down arrow, an up arrow, and a down arrow. If you could click on the down arrow.
Yes, that down arrow has been covered by the
Zoom.
Let me see if I can.
Okay, just move that entire bar somewhere else.
Yeah. Let me see if I can. Sorry, guys.
No problem.
You know. What I can do to switch off the the left side or the right side, all the icons. That's where what it has causing that. Let me move to the next one. Let me by moving away, I think I'll be able to search again. Yeah, that's better. I don't need to, that arrow key. I can just press enter. This is the second appearance of the character. And in verse 18, I encourage you to read your own translation. Now, it could be different because I know some translators are reluctant to translate as it is. So it's a small one. I will read this. When great Tao is abandoned, humanity and righteousness emerge. When insightfulness and intelligence arise, great falsehoods emerge. When a family clan falls into discord, sonly dutifulness and motherly love emerge. When a state is in chaos, loyal patriots emerge. So there are certain terms you feel, seems to be portrayed as a negative. Please don't read it as a, dualistic. It's simply doing the comparison. Tao is the ultimate. When Tao is abandoned, humanity and righteousness are merged. They seem to be something we appreciate without realizing, because we have lost the Tao and we feel there is a need of humanity and righteousness. The fact is, Tao is within all of us, and awareness with all of us. If we are constantly connecting to our awareness, you don't need humanity or the righteousness because the Tao encompasses everything. Now, this character in intellect or intelligence is where this appears in the second line. When insightfulness and intelligence arise, great falsehoods emerge. Now, I really don't need to explain this because you can all see today the world. You know, insightfulness, that sounds good. Some people will translate it as a wisdom. Great. And intelligence, you know, it's great. Again, don't be confused with the individual. This is not talking about individual. You should not use intelligence. This is a message for the ruler. As a ruler, their action is for the collectively, for the country or for the group. They should engage the intellect less, minimize. Let individual do what they feel is right. Now, why insightfulness will lead to that? It's all about when you have some sort of insightfulness about the universe, which is aroused by our awareness. And we start to have a desires. We start to wanting to know more. We want to predict, foretell, planning. And that's when you have desire to engage the intellect, because your awareness does not tell you what you want to know. Your awareness only makes you aware what you need to know. So you want to know more than you need to know. So you engage the awareness, the intellect. That's how a human is the way it moves, because they start to appreciate intellect more. They want to predict. And then they realize there is difference between people, and then ego comes to play. So all those are started. Think about the falsehoods. What's likely the falsehoods, coming from? It's usually coming from intelligent people, more likely. Agree? And you look at today, falsehood is everywhere. And particularly in the high end, our government, media, lobbyists. Now it's even in academia, right? It's all about this intelligence. Now we feel we have limited intellect because engaging in intellect needs a great amount of energy. Now we invent AI. So this will only accelerate the trend, the trajectory. So here is the second one. And then you look at the next one. Again, they mentioned about intellect. Stop holiness and give up intellect. Citizens will benefit 100-fold. Stop the sense of humanity and give up righteousness. Citizens will return to shunly dutifulness and the motherly love. Stop being clever and give up profiting. Bandits and thieves will be no more. As these three are merely inadequate, more must be added. See things in their original nature. Embrace the original source. Lessen selfishness and curtail desires. So the last three lines is really address the root why we appreciate intelligence, all those things, is selfishness and the desires. And we don't see the things in their original nature. We don't embrace the original source. Everything we do, we like please our eyes, please our taste, and really look at the substance, really look at what is good to our stomach. If you go, like young people, like my children, don't want to cook for themselves and they just go to restaurant. And I see that all the ingredients are highly processed, cheapest ingredients possible. And even there is a fake food. The food that classified as a lamb, probably not really lamb, maybe duck. So there are lots of substitutes, and the fast foods, which is really prevail, or rampant. That's probably better words. Let's look at next one. Again, talking about intelligence. No matter how intelligent, you can be deluded if you are not treating others. If you are, treating others are full, because everyone have that treasure, the diamond, the Dao, the awareness. They have the capacity to know everything they need to know if they wakes up. So here, this verse is about the Wu Wei, how you practicing the Dao by non-doing. And you treat the good man and bad man as just like a master and the resources that you can utilize, or students. And why sages, be good to the good and good to the not good, because he realized that everyone has that treasure. Why you would give up someone who have the treasure, the diamond within them, right? So it's against logic. You would not throw the diamond away. So this sort of analogy, the metaphor that they also use. The next one who knows others is intelligent. One who knows oneself is enlightened. Again, draw the difference between intellect and awareness. You know others through intelligence, and you know yourself by reflecting, which you have to engage in your awareness, not intellect. This is the most critical one about intellect. In ancient times, there were wise practitioners of Tao. They didn't seek to enlighten their citizens, but rather let them be ignorant of their intellect. The difficulty of governing a citizen or challenge is when they are too intelligent. You probably don't like that thinking, because you don't want to be fooled. But look at from the leader's point of view. Isn't that true? People is very hard to govern. When you set an example, try to smart on them, right? To play smart on them, then they have the capacity to be smart and against you. That's why, therefore, to use intellect to govern a country is to plunder it, to ruin the country. And to refrain from using intellect is to govern, is to bring prosperity. So the author is to take that very serious, emphasize again, you should know the difference between the two. and you should know which is the right model to govern. And when you choose the right model to govern, your De is like a majestic De, mystic De is like the term like a putti in the Buddhism teaching. You basically your awareness and your resident soul are in one. The highest De you can have. One with the highest De is the one who is most have a complete faith in himself, in others, or in herself. Yeah. And by doing that, you will get everything in harmony. So that's the last line. You will turn things around and lead all the way towards great harmony. Look at each country, whether it's the socialist country or the capitalist country, they're not in great harmony, right? Probably the island country is close to that. The country that considered a primitive, undeveloped, uncivilized, probably more close to that. The Native American community probably are close to that. So this verse have the three. So we have to go through all the verses that have that character intellect in it. So I just want to share that, and I'll stop here.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Peigee. Peigee, what I would like to do is that you made a very large point here, okay? And I want to hear everybody else's comments. So let everybody comment. And then once everybody has commented, you can respond to everybody. You can keep track of everything that people are saying, and you'll have plenty of time to respond. But I want people to be able to comment on it because it's a very fundamental point. I also have comments, but I'm going to start with David, Kwan, and then me. David, go ahead.
Right. Well, a couple things struck me, and I'm not sure even so how to read parts of the text. So in number 3, it was sort of sounding intellectual, anti-intellectual for the society overall. And the last one also. The first 3 lines there sort of suggested in the old days, we didn't educate. You know, the way of leading was not, and then the next couple lines show how using intellect to control can be negative. It's a matter of plundering, in fact. But why in the first 3 verses were we given that history? Because it sounded like don't enlighten the people. My translation used enlightenment there. They didn't encourage them to be enlightened. So you would think if you were encouraging enlightenment, people would be tending more to respect the Tao and the interdependence and the wisdom of the leader who doesn't have to lead by intellect alone. So I see this as all saying, although stressing the downside of intellect. Intellect's a two-sided thing. It's not a one-sided thing. Here are some of the negative sides of it. I think we know you need to be educated and learn to be a good leader. You need some good learning. But if you're leading by manipulating information and fooling people every way you need to get done what you're getting done, you're probably not leading them for their own good, in their own good. Is that sort of how you're hearing it?
Let's do one thing. We'll have him respond to everything because I want everybody, because he's made a very fundamental point. Okay. And we'll keep this as a question. If we don't get to it, please ask this question again. Hit exclamation mark. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Right. So it was just a question of sometimes the word intellect here, we wouldn't use that in English to describe what's being done. We call it cunning and wily deception because you're smart enough to do that. Not really what intellect is. Yes, you do need intellect to do that, but putting that on the intellect as a perversion, that's not the way we would usually use that word in English. So I'm saying there's a two-sidedness to intellect. And is that what they're showing us? That's what the point is here.
Okay,
thanks.
thank you. Thank you, David. Next up is Kwan, followed by Shrikant. Kwan.
Okay, I will try to be very synthetic, okay, because I agree with Shrikant that here is one of the major contention by Taoism, but okay, I try to be very principle based rather than take practical examples. If Tao is all encompassing, and I think that is the basic teaching of the Tao, intellect is part of the whole reality. And that's true that intellect has a very bad proclivity to take the upper hand if there is nothing there to supervise the intellect. So maybe it's the wording, maybe it's the translation, maybe there are better way to express it. And I try to say it in a very respectful manner. And please believe me, I want to be respectful. The natives are not an example. Okay, they are downtrodden people, crushed by the colonial West, and they almost disappear. I don't think that it's an example to offer to the world. Maybe they have been ecstatic during their life before the West arrived. I'm not against that. But once again, please believe me, I want to be respectful. Those people were at the prehistorical development either of Paleolithic culture or Neolithic culture. I much prefer the glory of Western civilization and the glory of Indian civilization and the glory of Chinese civilization. Even if they were not perfect, they have done bad things. Of course, the Chinese, the Indians, the Westerners, all of them have done bad things. But I think that it's much better to develop the intellect, but at the same time be sensible to the fact that we also have to go to being. So that being, the diamond, would be there to enlighten the intellect, because the intellect alone, of course, I agree, would be the cause for big disasters. But the intellect is the source of the tones of power. And I don't think that we have to renounce the tone of powers, but we have to accompany the tones of power with the light of pure consciousness. And I will take 20 seconds only to say that when I gave the metaphor of the tree, let's not forget that I was speaking of Chinese culture, not of absolute reality, not of timelessness. What Peigee said about timelessness is perfect, and I absolutely agree with that. But when you speak of a specific culture, either Chinese, Western, or Indian, that stuff is manifesting in time. And when you manifest in time, you need to express it with words, with images, with concept. Okay, so a culture cannot be floating in timelessness, because if it's the case, it would not manifest in time, and Chinese civilization would not exist, or Indian civilization would not exist, or Western civilization would not exist. Okay, so I stop here because I want to let everyone talk.
Thank you, Kwan. I also want to kind of, because what we're trying to do here is that we're trying to be very honest, and we're trying to really listen to what everybody's saying and try to respond at a very deep level. The thing I really like about everything that Peigee does is that he has this concept of awareness, which is actually really, really important. And I think he understands it really, really well. Now, the way I think about things, is mostly the highest thing that I know of. I mean, the thing is, I'm not claiming that this is the highest that is there, but each of us is limited in our knowledge. So my understanding of the Tao is not very good. It's very superficial. My understanding of Gita is not as, I've been spending most of my time recently on the New Testament. So in the New Testament, we have, I'm going to use the term God here because it's the most exalted thing, the most important thing, the universal thing that is behind everything. And I want to contrast. I mean, I think, in the New Testament, there are three things. There is the heart, there is the mind, and there is the body. And each of them, they actually go together. It's like oneness to them at their best. The awareness that is being talked about here so beautifully maps very closely to the Holy Spirit, or what is called the heart, or what is called the spirit of man. It is called the Holy Spirit. It is the motivating force. It is the love of universe as such. And it is the awareness, it is the will. All of that is captured there. But the way in which the New Testament looks at it is that there are three parts. There is that will, there is that awareness. Then there is logos, which is the first principle, or the restoring principle, or the creative principle, which is a word, which is which is an idea, which is a principle, which is a product, which is connected with the mind, the intellect. And then there is the body, and it also extols the body. It has this reverence for creation, the nature as such, because it sees it as being produced by this threefoldness. And that threefoldness is the Trinity, which is each running into the other. Any of the three of them, when they are separated out from the other two, lead to death and lead to destruction. So you can take ideas. If ideas are not fully shaped by awareness, continuously shaped and reshaped by awareness, if they are not completely expressed and tested in the body, then they die and they kill. And most of the things of intellect that talked about, I was using Ursula Le Guin's translation. And just as David said, if you look at the translation, she uses the term cleverness or intelligent versus wisdom. So she's distinguishing the proper use of intellect as fully married with awareness and fully married with effortless action, distinguishing that use of intellect from the wrong use of intellect, where you fall in love with your ideas, you get attached to the ideas, then you're no longer operating on the first principle because you've left the first principle. Same thing happens with body. When you have 10,000 things, you're not operating like a sage. You're not be like water, my friend. You're not that. You are basically these rocks which have been just set aside and kind of drawn into themselves. So they are similarly the heart too. You can get distracted by different things, and then you don't have the love of existence itself. So it is that threefold continuous loop, and it's a loop. It's not, you cannot think of them singly. It is a loop that runs through all three. And that loop, the integrity of that loop, that is the love of the mind for the heart for the mind, the heart for the body for the mind, body to the mind and mind to the body, going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth continuously in a living flow. That is the ideal that is being presented in the New Testament. And in that, of course, intellect can go wrong, just like the body can go wrong, just like the heart can go wrong. But that is when it separates itself from this life-giving loop. I really, really appreciate what Peigee does, because each of these is incredibly deep idea to understand what logos is, what the first principle is, what restorative is. Very deep. what does it mean to bring heaven on earth? What kind of thing do you need to do in real life to do that happen? So that's what the idea of the body or theosis is. Or what is the pure operation of the Holy Spirit, which is what I hear Peigee talking about as when he talks about awareness. Each of them, the more we understand them, we enrich our lives. All right. So next up is going to be Joe, followed by Nick.
Actually, Nick can go first. I'll go.
Nick, followed by Joe.
Oh, thanks. Maybe should we hear Piggy's response? Or
What we are doing is that we're doing a certain format. I want people to give a feedback on all the thoughts that they had as a result of Peigee's presentation. And then Peigee will have as much time as he wants after everybody has put their thoughts on the table.
okay, so I'll share a thought. But Peigee, I want to ask you just a follow-up question, just to clarify. So after your keyword search through the text found 8 references to this word intellect, and gone through the details of it, what is takeaway? What would you be your?
Very good. So let him answer that after everybody's comments. Okay.
Okay. So yeah, I'll just speculate the takeaway. And here is, I think, for me, the fundamental question, which is also piggyback on what you, Srikant, have just talked about, the church doctrine. Yeah, in the Western Hebrew Judea Christian tradition, the church fathers somehow they worked out the solutions. They say, well, look, faith and intellect, they are compatible, right? You need both. So that was the fundamental teaching, one of it, yeah. But here, if we hear all the criticism that the Dao De Jing has against those cunning little wisdom learnings, all that stuff, are we interpreting Dao De Jing as saying that intellect is incompatible with accessing Dao? Meaning, it's insufficient to rely on intellect to access Dao, that's clear. But even you don't want to rely on intellect to access Dao, because if you do rely on intellect, you are far away from Dao. Is that the message?
Thank you, Nick. We'll go with Joe, and then it'll be Peigee. Joe, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, so mine is similar in line with a kind of like, I guess Nick and David actually brought up something similar with this idea of, is it completely is awareness or true awareness totally in conflict with our intellect? And one of the things that I had brought up last time was this idea of how intellect and solitude was kind of brought up, and how the pure awareness is within solitude, is what Peigee said. And I'm just trying to understand that in conjunction with, say, number 17, where there's an element of leadership, but you're leading with what? Like, you're leading with some degree of the intellect. So you are following the Tao, you're just not imposing your will on something else. But the other part is that, and I really would have liked to have gotten this answer last time, is that can there be a self without another? Because if you're going to have pure awareness in solitude, can there be the idea of the self without the other? That was the other question that is stemming from last time, but number 17 was more or less this based off of what you shared this evening. Like, how do you reconcile like leading with using what? The intellect, I'm assuming, to some degree. And I guess it's Nick's question as well. Are they in contrast with one another?
Thank you. Thank you, Joe. Next up is Paul, and then we'll go to Peigee. Paul, go ahead.
Yeah, these last two comments have clarified, because I was trying to decide where I stand on this. But to propose an idea, I like Peigee's point that you can't, he's proposing you can't both be awareness and be engaging your intellect in some sort of a problem-solving sense, or at least that's what I understood him to say in some way. But maybe this idea that we hear in other threads of philosophy and life and religion about you might be solving an equation or doing something highly intellectual, but it's not, quote unquote, you that's doing it. It's being done, and there's an observer part of you that is the awareness. And so that's possible, and it's neuroscientifically possible. And that's the way they're reconciled. So that's my thought.
Thank you. Thank you, Paul. Peigee, thank you for being so patient, but I wanted to give a chance for everybody to really tell you what they thought about the ideas that you presented. Now, please take as much time as you would like to respond to anything that you would like to respond to.
Thank you. Firstly, I want to say thank you to you, Paul, for your the last word, and it's really good and food for thought. And but I because it's quite a broad, so I'm not gonna will have a time to respond exactly. But I appreciate that thought. And now I have listened and heard the feedback. And some of the thoughts are going through my mind when I was doing translation too. I think we, as a human, and when we see the language, it's very easy for us to slip into dualistic thinking. Our thinking is either one or not the other. And when the book emphasizes one thing, you feel automatically is against that and against using it. Let me again stress. Firstly, I'm trying to present the book as it is. I'm not trying to put my interpretation here. I'm trying to help you. So you will never see the awareness in my translation because it's not directly reflected in the text. And yet I emphasize, because that's the way I see how the Tao is being described. Now, intellect is the same thing. I know people many translators reluctant to translate as it is. Maybe they considered that you really need to translate according to the context. And under the context, maybe using the cunning or cleverness is better than intellect or intelligence. I have that thought too. I even actually used a similar way, but then I realized I'm not being faithful. Why I deny readers possibility to see for themselves. And besides, the intellect, intelligence have a wider connotation, and something need to be retained, just like the original Chinese character, 字. That exactly can mean many things, positive or negative. To me, they are neutral. Depends how you use them. Now, again, the book is not for advocating for any individual to follow, particularly to do without. This is a message for the leaders. Because think about, if you use intellect, use intelligence to govern a country, what does that mean? You are restricting individuals to exercise their individuality. That's the consequence, right? So you deny the individuals to use their intellect, their own intellect, because you set so many rules and regulations. That's what it is today. So the message is about for leaders, you should engage less the intellect. You let the individual to exercise what they see to fit. They want to play, how to play their game of life. It's up to individuals. As a ruler, you should not enlighten the individual, not try to do anything to it. Try to seek a benefit to others or harm others. You do nothing because the nature is already had that the mechanism in place. All you need to do is set example, be simple, be model for others, right? And when you do that, then all the citizens will follow. And particularly, they will be having a full confidence about, they know they will be looked after. All the policy will not just benefit who have the intelligence, who can dodge things, right? When people have no confidence on that, they will try to engage intellect more and more, try to do the same like others do. So I can't remember all individuals the question, but please repeat your question. I will stop here.
Yeah, thank you, Peigee. Let's see. I've always promised you that we'll stop by around 11 o'clock. But would you like people to ask any questions? Is that what you want to do?
Yes, please. I already had my lunch during the meeting, so I'm happy to. Yeah.
So folks, now only questions. Okay. Go ahead, Mark. Go ahead. Your question.
Thank you, Shrikant. Thank you, Peigee, for taking the time to go through all of these different chapters with us. The idea came up, I think, in Kwan's metaphor of the tree, of the mother and the father. And I know you rejected the idea of the metaphor as representing something timeless. My question is still about the idea of the mother and the father, because the idea of the mother comes up at least 5 or 6 times in the Dao De Jing, but I haven't found yet the idea of the father. I know it may be there if we consider in the yin yang, if we want to relate yin with the female and yang with the male, I'm not sure. But where does the father show up?
I don't know. This does not come to my mind. I haven't actually can recall there is anything in refer to father. And like a Christian, the Bible only referring to father, not the mother. I think the metaphor is the same. It's about the authority figure. And when I was rejecting the notion about you can put the Dao in any diagram, is simply try to emphasize its independence from anything. Emphasize the absoluteness of the Dao. But then when you mentioned about an individual effectively consists of body, mind, and the spirit. And indeed, the Dao is in the play, but again, Dao is the real host of a being. When a being loses that Dao, the connection to the Dao, then being ceases to exist, but the Dao is still there, right? So in that case, yes, if you want to put it in a relative term, in relative to individual, that is fine. And the other thing I want to give you this wide wondering about my mind in relation to how to envisage that the awareness. Now, the awareness is everywhere, which also means awareness is also within your each cells, organs, everything. So every being come to exist, they have awareness attached to it. We may consider this is something, I mean, scientists probably is not yet have evidence, but certainly they already realize that each cell have the intelligence. They consider it intelligence. They consider the firmware attached, like a DNA attached to it. But I'm not quite sure that's the firmware alone. There is more likely there is awareness that is always there. Look at a tiny ant. A dead ant, just so tiny, too small. You would never imagine that such awareness or intelligence has been exhibited in the little creature. And if anyone engaging in building AI, they will have no hope they can ever build such a small thing that can contain that sort of intelligence, right? Simply, the body doesn't seem to have that the room for that intelligence. So based on that logic, I also feel there is awareness rather than the firmware with the ant.
Thank you, Peigee. Next is going to be Quan, but Nick, you had a couple of questions. So after Quan, if you could ask them, and then I will go next. Quan, go ahead.
Maybe Nick can go ahead if he has a very specific question.
Sure. Nick, can you please repeat the questions that you had?
Yeah, sure. So the question is really, Peigee, after this reference to the word intellect in Dao De Jing, yeah, and most of the passages seems to suggest a derogative, negative attitude towards reliance on intellect only. And so in advising the ruler what to do, well, dumb them down, instead of enlightening them. So, okay, so that's fine. That was 2,000 years ago. But can we, so it's okay as a statecraft advice or whatever. But in terms of the philosophy, the deeper philosophy of Dao De Jing, do we get a sense that Lao Tzu was actually saying that intellect is incompatible with access to Tao? Is he saying that? Or is he saying, well, they are compatible, but different thing? You cannot just rely on the intellect in order to access Tao. Or is it, or is it better forget about intellect? Absolutely. And focus on, go to the mountain like a monk, meditate and get access to Tao. Oh, what is he saying? So basically, that's the idea. That's the question.
Well, a simple answer is yes. When you engage intellect, you have nowhere to aware your awareness. The Tao. If you agree with me, the Tao is the awareness, because, like I mentioned, your conscious mind can only focus on one. When you see something at that moment, you will not hear anything at that moment. When you are thinking something at that moment, you will not aware anything else. You're not able to see things, you will not able to hear things, unless your mind was stopped momentarily because you've been made aware. You don't ignore. So if you're in a deep thinking, and often we ignore our the awareness, and that's been classified as being sick. And yes, so the simple, quick answer is yes. The more you engage your mind, the more you will ignore your awareness. And you will prevent you to practice Dao. That's what the Wu Wei is about. Wu Wei is about mindfulness and being present. It's a bit more than mindfulness. You even start when you are all the action you are doing is something based on the Wu Wei. You don't actually try to create action that is unnecessary, not through the motivation. You only do when absolutely you need it through the awareness. But again, don't be confused about that. This is a motto for each of us. This is mainly for the ruler. And there is no way you can expect individual act same as like a sage, because the term sage is a holy man, holy person. It's an ideal figure, and nobody, as long as you have to live your life, you cannot be as such. You will engage your intellect because of the role you've been given. You can't stop this, but be aware. You should always switch back to your awareness. In other words, you should always do reflection. Reflect on what you're thinking, what you're thinking, because you are even when I'm speaking, inevitably, I'm ignoring the awareness. Unless when I'm speaking, I'm also watching you guys. And also constantly have that reflection, when I'm speaking too much, things like that. So always about having reflection, because that's when you will engage your awareness.
Thank you, Peigee. Next up is going to be Quan, followed by Shrikant. If anybody else has questions, go ahead and type an exclamation mark. Quan, go ahead. Feel free to make any comments if you would like. Yeah.
Okay. My question is really about awareness versus what is not awareness. Okay, because I think that is the fundamental dance, or what is Peigee just said is just perfect. And with your permission, I would like to add another metaphor. Okay, it's the image of the Nataraja. Okay, the king of the dance, which is Shiva with flames around him. Okay, I think that all of us know that Shiva, the king of the dance, is pure consciousness with the flames around, which is the phenomenal world. And I think that, please believe me, I absolutely, in the sense of what you are saying, Peigee, but when you say that awareness are in the cells, why would awareness not be capable in the intellect too? Okay, in the sense that the deep association or the deep interpenetration or the intimacy, okay, of the famous 3-in-1, okay, that if I want to be very down to earth, very technical, I would say awareness, thinking, and feeling, okay, rather than body, heart, and mind, or awareness. So if I use neurobiological words that is used in the 21st century, awareness, thinking, and feeling. And I want to pinpoint my question, okay? You say the teaching was for rulers. I agree with you. It was 3,000 years ago, 2,500 years ago. But maybe now we can aspire to a civilization where everyone is sovereign, everyone is ruler. And the fact that that kind of teaching, who was the privilege for the rulers in the past, is now offered to everyone, is it not an indication that collectively, civilizationally, we are at a moment when we are capable to think that it is an honorable goal collectively that everyone would be a ruler? I stop. That is my question. Because after all, forgive me, I want to add something. In the Chinese culture, the word for Wang, king, okay, is 3 horizontal line with 1 vertical line, okay? And that is precisely the famous or the infamous hexagram that I insist too much often. that is the invitation for everyone to be a king. Okay, not necessarily that he would be the king of a kingdom, but he would be a king. He would be a master for himself. Okay, so I stop my question. That's my question.
Go ahead, Peigee.
Let me answer your first question about why not enlightening people. As a ruler, I guess the language, yeah, again, it's very easy to be read as a dualistic. Remember this: do people need you to a ruler to enlighten? If you don't enlighten them, they will not be enlightened. It's up to the individual. And also, is the individual need to be enlightened through the doctrine? No. There are people that live like enlightened. Look at all the animals. They maybe not verbalize it. Maybe don't even can tell you what it is, but they just do, just a being. So I think, yeah, so it's not about that. Not enlightened means try not prevent people to be enlightened. So that's a two different thing. The other one, what was the initial question? I forgot. Did I answer your question, Guang?
Yes, my
What
first
was your first initial question?
Yes, I see that you have a quite good memory, because my first question was really, you said awareness is in the cells, right? Why awareness would not be in the intellect too?
I recall that. I think it's an excellent question. Indeed, for individuals, and as I said, the intellect is a faculty that's given to you, and you should use it. Here, the book is really emphasized to the rulers, and because he see the ruler overly use them, and in fact, as a ruler, you should not use it. You maybe use it as an individual. When you're living a ruler, living your own individual life, you can use it, but don't use that as governing on a policy, because what you do, you will prevent individual to exercise their freedom. Now, let me go back to the individual. As an individual, yes, you should combine them, because simply not because that you have to use the intellect, because you have the desire to live, to play the role you want, because we've been given individual role. You will not avoid, you cannot overcome your desire. You will want to play that role. So you will engage your intellect, but it will be efficient, prudent. If you don't want to work too hard, too stressed out, to always let your awareness lead the way. You use your intellect to contemplate, to demonstrate to the awareness that I have that need, because I want to go to that path. I want to play that kind of role. And then don't overly rely on the intellect to find the answer, because your intellect have no capacity. And it not only consume energy, it is have a limitation, because it only can work on the data you already stored in your memory, meaning the experience of your life. And remember this, the data in your memory, the experience in your life, they are largely, probably all coming from your awareness. It's not coming from your intellect, it's from your awareness. In other words, anything that you can store in your memory are the things that's been made aware of. You cannot not recall what you were thinking exactly, because your thinking never stored in the memory. That's my own theory. It's nothing in the book. Only that is being made aware will be stored in memory. You say, yeah, I remember what I'm thinking, my plan. That's only when you make a mental note. When you make a mental note, you bring the reflection, you bring your awareness into your thinking. Only then that will be stored in your memory. That's why we say people are constantly in thinking, are in the dreaming. Why in the dreaming? Because you cannot recall. Most of the dream, you cannot recall because they are in the mind, not awareness. But there are certain things you can recall, probably not exactly the mind activity. Maybe it's inspiration from your awareness. That's complicated. I'm not gonna talk too much about it. I'm not expert on that. This, what I'm sharing now, it's purely my personal observation or learning, because I'm have to answer your question, not related to the book directly.
If I have to, may I have 30 seconds? Because what Peigee just said is clearly understood in modern neurobiology right now. Okay, because the brain is a biological recording machine, and that recording machine functions subconsciously and consciously. What has been recorded subconsciously, you cannot recall, as you said, Peigee. Okay, you can only recall what has been recorded when awareness is present. What you said, the mental note. So I just want to say that neurobiology is advanced enough now to confirm that kind of stuff. Okay, or also you know Peigee, not Peigee, but Srikant, the famous like a tree. Okay, you have Jagrat, Stapna, Sushupti, and Turiya. Well, when you are in Svapna, meaning when you are in the dream state, you remember vaguely, okay, not as clearly as when you are Jagrat or when you are, and in Sushupti, only the yogi would has the most concentrated awareness would be capable to remember the state of deep sleep without dream, Sushupti. So I would say that I think that what you are speaking is incredible. Well, I think that it's clear that the Om with the Jagrat, Srapna, Sushupti, and Turiya are exactly what we're speaking now, but I stopped speaking to let other people talk.
Thank you, Quan. And
I just quickly add that thank you, Guan, and for your confirmation, although also your sharing insight. I just want to add, reminds me, your talking reminds me, you know, often as aged, when you're aging, you thinking about, you always feel that your memory is not good. And we blame our aging as the result, blaming that we have too much in our memory. Personally, I feel it's because you couldn't remember, because your mind is often not in the present moment, in the things you want to remember, the event, because when you're getting older, you engage your mind so much, and you are actually not observing the event you try to remember now as what you would be doing when you were a child. And it is because of that you cannot recall, because you never put the event in the memory, because you're busy engaging your mind. So I will stop here. Please go ahead.
Thank you. I have a question, and then it'll be David. So firstly, I want to concur with Quan that I really, really appreciate what you're doing, Peigee, because this is, we are able to discuss, deep concepts of philosophy. I mean, we're talking about awareness, and your observations about awareness, are very rich and very, it's like very detailed, very rich, very delicate, very, very useful. So I really, really, greatly appreciate that. So even when I disagree with some things, my approach is slightly different. I really appreciate that we are able to talk about this. I think it's just fantastic. So on the awareness, I want to go back to this kind of Trinitarian model. You see, the model in the New Testament of awareness is based on conversation. It is face to face. The idea is pros. When Gospel of John says, "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God." That's it. So, Word was with God. So God, there is the Word, and there is pros. Pros is being face to face. So imagine two people. Okay, imagine the Oh, that's what it is talking about. It's two persons being face to face who love each other, who really, really deeply care for each other and are completely focused on the other. The three things is you, so that, father is basically the physical being itself, that's being the father. The son is the principle, the explicated principle, and they are face to face. It's the face to face is the love between them. So imagine two people, when you are actually listening to another person whom you care about very deeply, and you're going back and forth trying to understand. So the three things going on: there is you, there is the other person, and there is what is going on between. And what it holds is that there is this rich dialogue taking place. When that is happening, each person, your awareness actually of who you are goes up, because you're going through this continuous pattern where you're paying attention to the other person, then you're seeing the effect in you. Then you're paying attention to what you're saying. Then you're paying attention to what is being said. Then you're paying attention to the other person. Then you're paying attention to you. And you're doing this a million times, many times a second. And that is the model of awareness, which is the base of the Trinitarian thinking. So that awareness it includes yourself, awareness of yourself. It includes the words of what is going on between you, and it includes the other person. All three together, because you are moving your awareness between these three things continuously. So that's how the the Trinitarian approach looks at awareness. I don't know if you have any comments, you're welcome to say.
Thank you for sharing. And I think that's indeed, that what reflect is the words can be a hindrance to the communication on a conscious level. And when you speak, you engage your intellect, because the language, as I said, is invented by man. And you have to use intellect to construct the language and to express it. And when you do that, you prevent your consciousness communication. That's why less is more. When you communicate with your children, with the friends, yes, by using less word is actually even better. You connect better. You connect, you can, like people are described, that you can see others' soul. That's what the gazing activity about gazing is about. And I remember that when I had a pet cat, I used a lot about gazing. And she was a very timid animal, but she had a great confidence in me because this regular, eye gazing. And when I stare her, she would make a gesture that to acknowledge my gazing. How amazing is that? You don't need a language.
Wonderful. Looks like David is not here. So let me just make one comment just to make to clarify, what I said. I talked about the Trinitarian, view, etc. But I have to tell you, I truly love Taoism. I really, really love Dao De Jing because it captures what it does so well and so beautifully. Okay. Also, I think that each text has to be understood in the context in which it came to be. When he's criticizing intellect, he's criticizing the bad use of intellects that he sees all around him. And he's saying, look, don't fall for this. He is criticizing the focus of people have on the 10,000 things. And so you have to understand everything. I think you have to understand everything that he's saying, in the context in which he's trying to do, everything that he's trying to do. kind of trying to pull him out from that context is to miss something about him and the context in which they work. And I truly love the Dao. And I think the way you're engaging the Dao, I'm learning so much from you. So I'm extremely grateful for your participation. So thank you so much, and thank you for your patience. And we'll see you next Tuesday. Bye, everybody.
Thank
Good
you all.
night.
We are
Thank you. Bye.
interconnected. We all help each other.
Yes, thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.